Good morning, and welcome to Lloyd's special programming at RIMS 2021. My name is Anya He, Regional Director and National Practice Leader in Risk Management at Lloyd's US. Many of you have been attending Tuesday with Lloyd's sessions, which we truly appreciate your participation, and hope to see you again next Tuesday when showcase of syndicate returns to the program. Andrew Brooks, CEO of Ascot Group, and his senior team will be joining us on the show, a session you don't want to miss. Today's session, Claims at Lloyd's, is part of the special programming for RIMS this year. We are thrilled to have Carey Bond, Head of Claims for Lloyd's US, to lead today's session. Carey will share with you his story shortly. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. You will see a polling question on your screen. Take a moment and please answer the poll so we can better understand our audience today. Secondly, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the session to make it interactive as much as possible. To help us stay organized, please submit your questions under the Q&A tool. Lastly and not least, today's session is being recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to share the recording with your colleagues who will end up joining us. You can also catch some of the sessions you missed during the past 2 weeks on the same YouTube channel. Without further ado, please welcome Carey Bond, Lloyd's US Head of Claims. Carey, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Carey Bond, Head of Claims for the Americas. The market requested and Lloyd's listened to the desire to have a claims presence in the Americas, and I've spent my career in the United States handling claims from an individual contributor role all the way through to senior leadership roles within a claims function. I spent a decade of the 90s as a stormtrooper or professional catastrophe adjuster, working the majority of named claims events as well as earthquake, flood, and multi-line claims such as blasting, trucking liability, and litigation. My primary role is to promote claims performance here in the Americas. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you today at RIMS to speak with you about claims at Lloyd's. Lloyd's has been in business over 332 years. We've learned a few things about insurance in whatever fashion it's presented. The claims function is the tangible result of the promise made when a policy is bound. A Lloyd's syndicate is formed by one or more members joining together to provide capital and accept insurance risks. Most syndicates write a range of business lines across multiple areas of expertise, and each syndicate sets its own appetite for risk, develops a business plan, arranges its reinsurance protection, and manages its exposures and claims. A managing agent is a company set up to run one or more syndicates on behalf of its members. They have responsibility for employing underwriters, overseeing their underwriting and managing the infrastructure as well as day-to-day operations. Syndicates can also authorize third parties, known as cover holders, to underwrite business on their behalf locally around the world. Service companies are wholly owned by a managing agent or a related group company and are authorized to write insurance for members of the associated syndicate. When you make a claim at Lloyd's, you benefit from unparalleled strength, trusted security, exceptional service, and high standards you can rely on. That's the Lloyd's standard. I'm going to explain what sets Lloyd's claim services apart from its competitors and how we process claims. To finish, I'll give examples of how the Lloyd's market has responded to various disasters around the world by paying claims quickly and efficiently. What sets us apart? Well, there are 4 key qualities built into the Lloyd's claim service that differentiate us from other companies. Unparalleled security. The combined strength of strong underwriting and technical expertise ensures a strong platform to reinforce the promise made. Global strength. Lloyd's has a global reach and breadth of market that allows experience and feedback to continue growth and development. Exceptional service. By constantly reviewing how we reach our customers, we continue to improve service through technology, training, and collaboration in order to provide world-class service. World-class expertise and standards for customers globally. We're committed to the best possible response to our customers. Whether it be locally or globally, our commitment never wavers. 300 years of progress. Not a breeze can blow in any latitude, not a storm can burst, not a fog can rise in any part of the world without recording its history here. That was a journalist describing the underwriting room at Lloyd's in 1859. As pioneers of complex and unusual risk, Lloyd's has ensured amazingly fascinating ventures over the years. Eager to support the brave and ready to insure where others wouldn't, the Lloyd's market has been at the forefront of insurance innovation for more than 3 centuries. But we don't just do the serious stuff. The market has been an innovator and shows the specialist expertise that only can be found in the Lloyd's market. For example, the first commercial spaceflight policy in 2004, underwritten by the Lloyd's market. The first standalone terrorism policy, oil rigs, factories, ships, bridges, reinsurance, D&O liability, event cancellation, cyber, and the sharing economy. This gives you a view of the classes of business written within the Lloyd's market. As you can see, there's barely an endeavor undertaken that Lloyd's doesn't take a part in. There's a wide range of solutions, and we create the right solution for you, no matter the specialist or complex nature of your risk. This includes Lloyd's 60 lines and over 200 types of product cover, and is based on risk codes. And there's a global network of expertise. There's 93 insurance companies or syndicates, and 335 brokers made up of the best minds in the industry to source capacity and appetite for your risk. This is how the Lloyd's market works. It is through these methods that the classes of business previously mentioned will become part of the Lloyd's market. It's also important to note that when a claim occurs, it's through these entry points that claims will be filed. Once a claim is filed, the claims investigation has begun to solidify the facts of loss and confirm that coverage applies. Once facts are gathered and coverage is confirmed, the claim will be adjudicated by assigning to a third-party administrator or an organic adjuster to determine the economics of the claim and move the claim to resolution based upon its merits. There are over 100 TPAs that support the Lloyd's market in the U.S. Once the claim is assigned to a third-party administrator, the field work that may be required will be primarily in the hands of the TPA, with a direct reporting line to the underwriting syndicate or company. And based upon the information and valuation gathered, the claim will be progressed to payment or the other resolution that may be given. Well, this slide breaks it down even more. And there are a few key impact points. Over the past 15 years, the Lloyd's market has paid an average of $2.1 billion per day on claims. Now, keep in mind, there have been a number of large-scale catastrophe events globally, such as the Chilean earthquake, Hurricanes Katrina, Harvey, Irma, and other major catastrophes that drive that number. To bring that into even more perspective, the Lloyd's market averaged $58.6 million per day in 2020. There were over 40 catastrophe events that occurred in 2020. This gives a suggestion of the width and breadth of the market that allows the participants to have confidence that the claims function works exceptionally well. And the market's claims expertise is unrivaled. There's There's no other place where one may be able to access the experience of the more than 90 leading insurers listed here, other than the Lloyd's market. I mentioned earlier that Lloyd's is generally a subscription market, meaning that there may be several insurers underwriting the policy. The lead will be a broker's principal point of contact for the claim, and their decision binds the other insurers on the risk, who are called followers. The Lloyd's claim scheme holds the detail of the key responsibilities of the lead when acting and agreeing on behalf of the other Lloyd's insurers on a claim. Essentially, it holds the rules for handling a claim, so that regardless of who the lead is, the client will receive a consistent claims experience from the Lloyd's market. The Lloyd's Catastrophe response. Lloyd's continues its industry-leading practices in the catastrophe space. Lloyd's uses the Catastrophe portal to ensure that our obligation to the market is met. The Catastrophe portal allows us to digitally capture catastrophe-related information in a timely and more productivity-friendly method than we may have in the past. In addition, we are using technology to develop layered data gathering by using satellite and other imaging and data capturing methods to provide us with multi-layered data to more effectively handle claims. By fielding before and after data capture, we are able to dissect catastrophe events in near real time to drive shaping and decision-making in the catastrophe area. These methods, coupled with a solid catastrophe plan and immediate feedback from the field, assures that our clients are effectively serviced. The future at Lloyd's is the strategic plan we are currently executing as we modernize and digitize processes. In the claims area, what this means is that the use of data will be the driver of improved functions for our customers. By capturing data at the time of binding coverage, that data flow will continue through the claims process that I described earlier. Blueprint 2 is the current iteration that we are operating under. We have a number of the underwriting companies, third-party administrators, as well as any number of vendors that are supporting our efforts to digitize and improve the flow of information. It's these entities that are assisting us by field testing innovations as they're developed, so that we have a fully developed process when we scale it to the market. As we continue the execution of the future at Lloyd's, we will see a streamlined and transparent, digitally enhanced claims process. Stakeholders will know exactly where they are throughout the life cycle of a claim, resulting in a much faster settlement time and improved customer experience. Cycle times will reduce, and payments will be quicker by linking relevant loss and policy data, automating aspects of the claims handling process, and creating seamless interfaces with carriers' claim systems. New support services, communication and collaboration tools will be delivered to support all stakeholders involved in claims handling throughout the life cycle of the claim. The Lloyd's Claim Standard says that under one globally trusted name, the Lloyd's market and Lloyd's Corporation work together to offer peace of mind to individuals and businesses alike. With global strength, trusted security, excellent service, and the highest standards, we offer reinsurance when you need it most. That is the Lloyd's Standard. To learn more, please visit Lloyds.com for more information. And with that, I'd like to thank you for allowing me the time to share the Lloyd's claims experience with you. And I'll address any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carey, for the presentation. Shall we turn to the audience if they have any questions? We're open for questions. Carey, I know you are part of the Future at Lloyd's, the whole plan we're moving forward with at the moment. So can you give us some ideas on some of the things we're doing on the claim side that are modernizing the market to speed up the claim process. Can you give us some insight into that part of the plan you've been involved with?
You bet. What's happening with the claims function is we've invited a number of vendors in, and we've engaged a number of the underwriting companies as well as third-party administrators to conduct research and see where the pain points are within the claims function. Some of the feedback that we've received is the length of time that it takes to resolve claims, the complexity of reconciliating records and files. And what we're doing with the future of Lloyd's is through that research, we've developed an analysis that's driving resolutions to some of those issues. There's a faster claims payments that we're working on, so that currently something that may take over 10 days, we're reducing that to less than 2. The process of reconciliation once a third-party administrator is in the position to pay a claim, the funding process to make those funds available to the policyholder is improving, and that's all through the initiatives that we've developed in the future at Lloyd's.
What are the challenges you see by talking to our stakeholders in their claim handling process, the TPAs? What are the biggest challenges you have seen and heard from these stakeholders you have been talking to?
Well, one of the things that we've had discussions about is the communication process. And whether it be telephonically or through email or through the post office, one of the issues that we've taken on is how do we improve the communications process. The important thing in the claims function is typically a person has 2 opportunities to decide on who's going to cover their risks. One is when they bind with a syndicate or a broker, and the other is when they have a claims incident. And the importance that we have to follow and make sure that we address effectively is how that process is communicated, and then putting execution behind that communication process. And sometimes in surge situations, such as a catastrophe, when you have what we call a surge situation, and typically outside of the spring, when you have wind and flood events, and the fall, when you typically will have hurricanes, it's business as usual, and you may have more time outside of those events. And subsequently, sometimes things may become comfortable. So that when a surge does happen, the capacity to answer phone calls, respond to emails, or send documents sometimes is an issue. So one of the things that as part of my function is to make sure that we're talking about looking at those processes and procedures so that when a claims event does occur, we can effectively communicate what the Lloyd's market has to offer.
One more question for you, Carey. As far as the future of Lloyd's is concerned, where is the focus area from what you're doing today and what you focus tomorrow to improve efficiency of our claim handling process? You mentioned speeding up the process, reduce the time involved in process and make payment. What do you focus on at the moment? What do you focus maybe next 1 year, 2 years?
Well, the focus is on digital capture and how we improve that process so that we're able to capture data that right now we're capturing it manually. The future at Lloyd's and the processes being developed within the Lloyd's lab is to digitally capture the policy information and then the claims information so that we can make more effective decisions on the automation that we may need, the improvement to claim systems, the ability to move funding around so that any difficulties that may be there to pay a claim, we remove them. The thing that we think we've recognized and the thing that we're acting on is that we can do a much more effective job if we have more data to shape our decision-making process. So as we continue forward in the near term, midterm, and longer term, the future at Lloyd's is a 3-year strategic plan. And we're right in the middle of it. And what we're doing is continuing to improve the data capture so that we can do the analysis and then continue to right size, right focus, and in a more pinpointed fashion, fix those things that may need fixing and improve on those things that are working well. But we ask ourselves a question, is it possible that it could work better? And through that digital capture, that's where we're making that analysis that either we may need to change something or improve some of the processes that we have. But the bottom line is what works best for our customer, and are we most effectively and efficiently servicing them?
Hi, Carey. Thanks for the presentation. I really enjoyed that. So I know you mentioned you have quite an extensive background in claims and you've worked for a few different organizations in this area. So I was wondering if there's anything that you're bringing to Lloyd's or any sort of new ideas of new ways of doing things that you are bringing to the role at Lloyd's and applying it in a different way.
Emma, I think that's a fantastic question. And I'm going to do my best to give you a fantastic answer. The benefit that I bring and the benefit of Lloyd's is that the market requested that there be a claims presence here in the United States. So subsequently, they created the role of the head of claims. And I'm the first person in that role. And the benefit that I'd like to think that I bring to that role and to the market is that I've handled claims here in the United States my entire career, and that spans over 30 years. And as I mentioned before, I worked it from an individual contributor all the way through senior management. Now, the benefit of that is that things that work well, I can capitalize on that work well here in the United States. There were times when I was an individual contributor and I'd be sitting in front of a loss and I'd think to myself, what idiot has me standing here in front of this loss and all these requirements that I have to do. And as I progressed through various leadership roles, I became that idiot that had to answer that question. So during the decade of the 90s, when I was a professional stormtrooper, which means that I sold my services to whoever may buy them, what that gave me the opportunity to do is to see what worked by what carrier and what didn't work done by another carrier. So understanding some of the rules and regulations that some companies may have that may actually hamper the claims process. And then at the same time, when I worked for another company that did things exceptionally well, I learned what that was too. So when I came back to the corporate side of the house and I actually had to assume that key leadership and decision-making role, I had the background and experience in the field that says, that sounds great, but it doesn't work very well. So subsequently, when I'm in discussions with the Lloyd's market, is that it's the benefit of that background from having worked most major catastrophes in the United States, as well as the everyday claims that may come in the third-party arena, lawsuits and litigation, and understanding the various challenges that may come with different regions of the country. I think I've worked in nearly every one of the 48 contiguous states. And understanding the local venues, the local mores and norms when it comes to claims handling, having to do that as a living and having to adapt and understand what those things were, that what may work in New York City will not work in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And some things have a different tint to them than others. And being able to advise that and provide feedback when it comes to making decisions about systems, regulations, and feedback, and especially during a hurricane season, I think is very valuable. And having that background allows me to do that. And I feel comfortable saying that being able to speak effectively to the DA community, because it's a community I worked in at one point. And I understand the culture and I understand the viewpoints, and being able to have a claims person to claims person conversation means a lot. And it means a lot when you've had that experience and it's been local experience. And I think it provides a common ground so that when it comes to claims performance improvement, it's not some guy that was found wherever. It's a guy that's actually been there, done that, has an understanding, and can speak effectively to it. So I know it's a long answer, but it's the answer I have.
That's great. Thanks, Carey.
You bet. Thanks for the question.
We are thrilled to have you join our team, Carey. This is just amazing. And for those of people, I noticed there's a few brokers and some young talents in the audience. So those upcomers in our industry, what do you offer to them, saying how do you become so successful in the claim field? Also some tips to the brokers and our partners in the audience as the hurricane season evolving. Anything you want to offer to them, saying how do you make it better in the claim process?
You bet. Thanks, Andy. That's a great question. Well, from a broker standpoint, give me a call. I want to interface with you. I want to talk to you. I want to offer any feedback that I'm able. Right now, I have what's called Claims Conversations with Lloyd. It's a quarterly conversation that I have with the DA community where we talk about things that I think are important to the Lloyd's market. The last one I had was last month, and the key focus there was preparation for the cat season coming up, and normally late third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter. That's when the hurricane season is at its most fierce. And what's important there, and some of the things that we may have learned from last fall, we got exceptionally fortunate, if there is such a thing, in that we had 5 landfalls, but none of them hit a major population center. But the industry still had impact from it. Some of the things that we learned is that in some cases, some of our third-party partners may not have been as prepared as they could have been. And we've had discussions about that with them. And the time to prepare for the hurricane season is now. It's now is the time to look back at what happened last fall and ask yourself, what could I have done differently to improve the outcome of what happened? Because we may not be as fortunate in 2021 as we were in 2020, if you can call it that. But the name of the game is to be prepared. And the other part is since I'm here in the United States, if you have questions, give me a call. The other thing is what's happened recently in the claims world is the beginning of the insurance village. And you may have heard about that during various hurricanes. During the Paradise Fire, there were insurance villages set up so that various carriers, and in our case, the Lloyd's market, will be there to address questions and concerns of the community that was impacted. Well, going forward, that role will be filled by me. I'll be the person that will be the Lloyd's representation in those insurance villages so that we can talk about what the claim situation looks like from the Lloyd's market experience. And at the same time, I'll be coordinating with the underwriting companies as well as the market to talk about what the claims experience looks like at that particular time. Now, to the question of how do you develop in the claims role, well, I would say that be prepared to learn. There is no situation that's always the same. It's great to have a grounding from a general sense of things that are happening. But at the same time, you have to be prepared to learn. Because here's the deal. In every state in the United States, there's a legislature, and every year there are bills that are passed that may, for the most part, have impact on the insurance market. And if you're not prepared to to address those particular legislative changes that may change the rules and regulations of how we administer claims, well, you may be using claims handling practices from 2000 that don't work particularly well in 2021. So being flexible, adaptive, and willing to learn and adapt, to me, is critical. And I think those are things that apply in any role, but more so in the claims role, because things are constantly changing, the landscape may be different, and certainly the consumer tastes will change with that.
Thank you so much, Carey. This is very helpful. Without further questions, we'll just wrap up. Claims are at the core of what we do as a market at Lloyd's. It's also the feature of our industry is paying the claims as we promised. It's our sincere hope by today's session, you in the audience not only have gained better understanding into the Lloyd's claim process, but also have enhanced your confidence in claim paying capabilities of Lloyd's as a market. So at the end of the session, there's a short survey to collect your feedback. We really appreciate you for taking a minute to answer a few questions. Your answers will help us to improve future programming of our program. Another reminder that join us next Tuesday for Syndicate Showcase featuring the Ascot Syndicate. Thank you very much again, everyone, for joining us today, and hope to see you again next Tuesday, and stay well. Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.